What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Late Round Fantasy Football Show, Week 8, presented by DraftKings. We have a lot to talk about. I want to give someone his flowers. I'm not going to say who, but we had a fun game last night for the late rounders, and we are excited about this show. So stick around. It's a Late Round Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by DraftKings. Welcome in to the Late Round Fantasy Football Show. It's Week 8. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, DraftKings, for sponsoring the show. Go to DraftKings, hit the QR code, go to the website or description in YouTube to get your Week 8 deposit bonus. And with that, JJ, how's it going?
It's going, man. It's going.
Yeah.
You actually don't look as fuzzy right now as you did 5 minutes ago.
You want to take people to just behind the scenes of what is happening, what has been happening.
Look. Let's allow you to breathe for a second. Okay. So you relax. Okay. You relax, chill out. So we hopped on. Kitchen's had some like connectivity issues and like just random. I mean, you guys might have seen like random like fuzziness with his video. And he hopped on right before all of this, and it was just like real bad. Like he would say something, you know how like ventriloquists will like do those things where they like say something and their mouth doesn't move, and then they mouth it later, you know, just to like really mess with people. That's what was going on with. I don't know what you're doing with the screen right now either. But that's what he was. That's what it was basically looking like for him. Right now it's crisp though, but that's why we were about 5 minutes late to start the show. And there was a little bit, I could see the panic in your eyes.
The biggest issue is that I went out this week and
This was on you.
I know.
Okay.
But still, I had a laptop from the COVID days from 2020. And I just assumed this was because I went through all my tests. I went through ChatGPT. And so for those that are having computer issues, listen. I see you. I hear you. I am one of you. Just with a brand new laptop with a fuzzy internet connection.
Dude, I got to say, though, right now is the crispest that your video has looked all season. Like right now. It's I'm telling you that you're just using the computer camera, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's better than what you had before. So stop using the other thing.
Yeah, I'm going to. Stopped. All right.
Done.
Let's move on to Week 8. I just want to say the Patreon, if you're not joining the Patreon, consider doing so. Last night was a lot of fun in the chat. Seeing like every time you told everybody like beforehand, I'm not sure how this happened, but I've got like 80% Aronde Gadsden going tonight because of the bye week and everything else. And a lot of other people did too, because he's been on the show. He was a look ahead waiver wire multiple times. You've mentioned him. And congratulations for people that do have him.
Yeah. I mean, that was that from like a process standpoint, because that's what I care about most with these things, right? From like a process standpoint with Aronde Gadsden, I'm really, really pleased with, you know, sort of my philosophy and how to attack rookies in general is that they're ambiguous. There's a lot of upside. And if they're showing you something early, you should really go after them. And so earlier in the season, I think it was week 3, I had him as a waiver wire ad. And then the crazy thing with Gadsden is that in week 6 was when Will Dissly came back. And in that game, he had a really good route participation rate. His bottom line wasn't like great, but it wasn't horrible either. But it wasn't, you know, that 29-point performance that he had in week 7 that got everybody to start adding him off the waiver wire. And obviously I had to bring him up again on the 15 transaction show. But I don't think there's a better example of why we need to lead with peripherals versus leading only with production. Now, to be fair, like this can go the other way too, in the other direction as well. Like Alec Iamaner after week 1, not to make you even more upset, you know, with the Titans offense, but Alec Iamaner after week 1 had fantastic peripherals and, you know, he's getting down the field targets and stuff. And he was someone that, you know, I talked about on the 15 transaction show, and he really hasn't been a difference maker in fantasy at all. He's just like a depth piece that I guarantee you, like people listening right now have added and dropped Alec Iamaner like 4 times this season, you know? Like he's the guy who just gets shared around a bunch of different teams where everyone's like, oh, maybe this is the week that he and look, like I thought he was a pretty good prospect, and I do think that circumstantially in just the situation there has just been brutal. So there's reason for all that. So there is plenty of instances where like this kind of process doesn't result in what's going on with Oronde Gadsden. But when you can combine the peripherals and the usage and the offense that they're in, all of that with a pretty good talent profile. Like I went back and I looked at the looked at the late round prospect guide, and I have like one-liners for all the tight ends because I don't do tight end profiles. I just have one-liners. And for Oronde Gadsden, it just said good everywhere, potential opportunity. That's all it said because his profile was really, really strong. And then shout out Andrew Cooper, also Coop, who came on late round perspectives in July. And that was and he's the tight end whisperer, Andrew Cooper. And he came out and he talked about Oronde Gadsden being a deep league dart throw. And so it's just a lot of like those things kind of coming together. And it's always really nice when those things do come together and you get a hit out of it. And I think it's very clear that he's like I haven't done my rankings, so this is just off the top of my head, but probably top 5, top 6 tight end rest of season at this point. Like he's tight end. To me, you got to be aggressive in ranking rest of season because you shouldn't care that much about the floor. Like he was already ranked as a tight end 1 for me entering this week, not just this week, but I mean rest of season. And given that performance, they didn't throw that much in the second half, so I'm not really looking at those second half numbers and being that concerned over it. But yeah, I mean, like he's balling out. Like he is doing historically great things right now over this 3-game stretch. And he's been really good, and he's a rookie, and he looks like a wide receiver playing tight end. And that is what we care about in fantasy football. There's kind of like this like Waller vibe to him, but he's young, like I don't think this is fluky at all. Is he going to do what he did last night every week? No, he's not going to score every week, but I do think that he's someone that's going to be in our lineups each week.
Vincent agreed with JJ. I can actually see what's behind you now, Kitchen. Someone can see my pores. Jeff says, wow, we actually see your mugs. I usually listen on Saturdays and don't get to see you guys. And I'll just say this is an interactive show. So Jeff, we need you interacting with this show. We need people that have watched it later to basically comment and let us know your feedback. Also, Benton said that he can confirm one league picked up and dropped out of manner about 3 times each.
Yeah, he is literally like the dude. And then I wouldn't be, like, what if he just kind of goes off during the second half of the season? I don't think that's like out of the question, but he's been like the guy that people are adding and dropping. I would argue because of injury, Darnell Mooney's probably doing that in some shallower leagues as well this season.
Okay. With that being said, let's get to some of the more news and notes.
Today's fantasy news.
All right, let's clear off that comment. I'm now working with like a little screen, JJ.
Yeah.
And I realize how different it is working like not with like a wide screen.
Right.
I got to work with what I've been given. That's all I can do. Okay, so let's talk about more of that Thursday night football game. What are your thoughts on the Vikings side?
I was going to go to Kamani Vidal.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Because he, we were having a pretty good discussion in the Discord today. Because when as good as the Gadsden call has been this year and like being early on him, I wasn't someone who was like pounding my chest to say, go get Kamani Vidal whenever Amari and Hampton got hurt. It was more of a 50-50 thing for me. And, with all the reports about Haskins and the fact that the Chargers had Haskins on their initial 53 this year. They waived Kamani Vidal earlier this season. Like, to me, it was, okay, what's like 51-49, let's lean Haskins. And clearly it's been Kamani Vidal. Now, I'm happy about that because I feel a little vindicated after last season, liking Kamani Vidal and that not coming to fruition. And we're seeing that he's a pretty good running back. He's also playing like way more out of his mind than I even thought was possible. Right?
He looked good. I mean,
he's looked great. The other thing too is that like he's been great in pass pro too. And that's something that I think we could see him still play a role. Amari and Hampton's still in his boot. We don't know when some people are speculating it's not going to be until like week 13 when Amari and Hampton's back. But, let's just say Amari and Hampton's back and healthy. I still think Kamani Vidal could see 30% of the backfield touches with Amari and Hampton getting 70%, and Hampton would be the goal line guy and stuff, but Vidal might steal some work through the air. Like this Hampton injury, Hampton was trending to being a top 10 running back in fantasy football this year. But the Hampton injury obviously derailed that. It's really helped Kamani Vidal be, in my opinion, while Hampton's out, he's a pretty solid RB2. It's just the offensive line looked better last night with players coming back, with Joe Alt back. The Vikings defense did not look good. To your point, that was something that Denny on Late Round Perspectives this week actually called out as one of the mirages of the season. People thinking one thing about some sort of player or team and reality being another. So good call on Denny for that. But yeah, I mean, I think the story of last night, aside from Oronde Gadsden, is Kamani Vidal. If not, Kamani Vidal is the number one story, even above Oronde Gadsden.
Yeah, as someone who, I did pick up Vidal in a couple leagues, home league. I picked him up in the Chopped league that we're in with the late round crew, still surviving that one. I will say though, as an Amari and Hampton owner and best ball owner, that it might not be great because like if he's doing good, they're just gonna let Hampton rest even more.
Yeah, well, the real problem is that look, I drafted a bunch of Hampton, and it sucks because you're watching what could have been for Amari and Hampton, and it's a really, really tough pill to swallow because Hampton's a very talented player, but I don't want to take anything away from Kamani Vidal. Like he's been destroying. It's okay sometimes where it's like, okay, this is a 50-50 situation with Haskins and Vidal and we look back 3 weeks before, 3 weeks ago, and we're like, how could we have ever thought, well, the Chargers cut Vidal at one point this year and they waived him, and Haskins was the number 2 back. He was stepping in when Hampton got hurt. He was the dude that they used right away. Vidal had more like ambiguity to his profile, but guys, it's not like Vidal was that good last year is the issue. Like, you could sit here and say Haskins sucks. I would, or is at least replacement level. I would agree. But with running backs in general, it's a coaching decision. And not only that, but when they go with a hot hand approach, if Vidal's just playing way better than any of us expected, that's just going to happen sometimes. That's just the way that it goes. Do I wish I had more Vidal and I didn't split it the way that I did? Of course. But yeah, I mean, that's where we're at with Vidal right now. He's been a nice little revelation given, I took some crap for liking him last year.
There you go. Not forever young. Bryce Young, doubtful. Officially doubtful for this week.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's an upgrade for the Panthers offense, probably.
Yeah.
Not a huge one. I'm not like that. But like last year we saw, remember when Deontay Johnson was pretty relevant for a second with Andy Dalton. I think he's still a decent deliverer of the football. And Bryce Young has played okay at times this year, but there's still plenty of question marks about Young. And so tough matchup this week. I'm not like super, super amped. Tough enough matchup, I should say. The Bills have been a little bit banged up, but yeah, I mean, I think that this is not like this is more of a neutral thing for the Panthers offense in general.
Okay. We got Nico. Oh no. Nico Collins, man. We want him to be healthy. We want him to do good. Got that concussion was brutal, and now this Houston offense might be brutal as well.
Yeah, I think that this is. I mean, I'll play a little spoiler here.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say Jalen Knoll season, and it's not just because of Nico; it's because Christian Kirk as well. But we'll talk about that later.
Okay. But like when you think about some of those late round guys, or late round in the first round. You've got Nico Collins. You've got Malik Neighbors
Brian
on
Thomas.
one end. On one end, and on the other end, on the other side, you've got Puka and Amon-Ra.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's been a really weird season for that group. I mean, look, Puka obviously is a league winner. Amon-Ra St. Brown's been a league winner. Nico is not. And then in the middle, you kind of have Drake London. Like Drake London's kind of hitting expectation. Maybe some would say a little bit below expectation, but we'll see what at the end of the season. But yeah, it's been a really weird season for that group. I mean, look, you got to expect like some players are going to not live up to expectation, but the profiles that we have for some of these guys, I think Nico's has been very much not his fault, whereas Brian Thomas has been partially his fault or largely his fault. But yeah, it's just been an interesting year with that group of players.
Okay, what can Brown do for you? AJ Brown. We need him to play this week and to be healthy.
Yeah, I mean, like right now, I'm expecting him to go. That's my general vibe. I mean, we had some reports earlier this week from good Eagles beat reporters that were saying that they'd still expect him to play, even though he wasn't practicing earlier in the week. Now he still hasn't practiced, so that's a problem. So you got to definitely keep tabs on it. But I'm more in the ballpark of saying that Brown's going to play. If he doesn't play, Devontae Smith is a really good play, obviously. And Dallas Goedert will get more looks. And then you could look at like a Jahan Dotson if you're really desperate for a wide receiver play this week.
Okay, it's the right time. I don't know if you saw this.
I did.
My best ball bags saw this. Apparently, the Dolphins are wanting to get Jalen Wright more involved this week. JJ, you buying this or you selling it?
I don't really care is what I mean. I do from the standpoint is like I hope it doesn't take away from Devon Achane, but I think it will to some degree. I just think it's funny that like this is the thing that they're kind of pointing to right now is like this is going to really help the offense and stuff. But like there's so many problems with Miami that I just don't really care. I mean, this is more of an Ollie Gordon thing, and Jalen Wright just being more of a different kind of change of pace for them in that backfield. I think if anything, it's going to hurt Achane a little bit. They have a really tough matchup this week anyway against Atlanta, who's just been really underrated as a defense this year. So yeah, I mean, my reaction is, yeah, that's their issue. They haven't used enough Jalen Wright this year. That's the problem.
All right. Jets lost in the sauce. Jets, you've got Garrett Wilson not expected to play this week. And I think he's already been ruled out. And also Sauce Gardner out.
Yeah, I mean, there's also
there's
also, Tyrod Taylor's questionable at this point. So, wonder what direction they go in at quarterback if something changes there, but I do still expect Taylor to go. I mean, yeah, fire up your Bengals is your reaction here because they're in a great spot. Away. Jets defense hasn't played great this year. I'll talk about T Higgins in a second. But yeah, I mean, you're playing the Bengals pretty confidently. 25.5 point total for Cincinnati.
Flacco owners rejoice. Downs is up. Josh Downs, he's back this week, baby.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that they would just use him in not a slot role.
Yeah,
they're not. This is what I was talking about with Tez Johnson on the mailbag episode today. Is that some players will fall into spots. Like if Josh Downs played for Tampa Bay, he would not be solely a slot player. Tez Johnson, I was looking at his Zap model profile because I answered that question on the mailbag this week. And his Zap score was horrible. It was like 16. And I was looking back at other like smaller wide receivers who have hit and given us like decent production in the NFL since 2011. And every single one of them had perimeter routes in college. Like they played like Tank Dell, for instance, like he played, on the outside, even like I can't remember who some of the other ones were, but like they played a little bit on Hollywood Brown, they played a little bit on the perimeter. It wasn't just like a slot only role. Tez Johnson had an 87% slot rate. Now Josh Downs was a slot guy too in college, but Tez Johnson goes to Tampa Bay and they're gladly, he has a sub 50% slot rate last week, and he's not only a slot receiver for them, and he's still being, he's still productive enough. And I wish teams would just be like, okay, you're a gamer, you're good. Let's throw you out there no matter what, because you're good. And Josh Downs hasn't even been that bad from a yards per route run standpoint whenever he's been on the outside. So, it's fine that he's back. It's good, but I still don't see like a season long. Of course he can have spiked weeks, especially in good matchups, but from a season long perspective, it's hard to still see that ceiling.
Would you say this week is a good matchup for him?
I don't know. I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I can look it up for you. I can't remember.
I'm just saying in general, playing against the Titans.
Yeah, I mean, but the problem with the Titans though is that they actually they're not the best matchup for wide receivers because of game script stuff. Like they're actually bottom half in the league in adjusted points allowed to wide receivers. Right now they've allowed the 22nd most adjusted slot fantasy points to wideouts. So like it's not even that great of a matchup just because you're not going to see that much passing volume when you play the Titans.
Which brings us to our next thing is that the Titans just continue to be down. I want to say thank you, JJ, for giving me that shout out.
Yeah, no problem.
In the Trends episode.
Yeah.
That was it was really sweet of you. It was precious, honestly.
You.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I figured that you'd like that.
How bad they've been. But they've got Calvin Ridley still out. Here's the thing though. They've got Jeff Simmons now out. And for those that don't know Big Jeff, he was PFF's leading. That's what they call him.
I know.
That's his nickname.
I know. It's just funny because it's the Titans and of course you're going to call Titans by their nicknames.
Yeah.
That's why it's funny. That's why it's funny.
Big Jeff Simmons. Everyone should know this guy because he's one of the top defensive tackles in the league, and he was having an all-pro season. And it looked like last week he hurt his hamstring, so he is not going to be there. So like Jonathan Taylor might have 200 yards this week.
Everyone's going to be looking at Bijan Robinson, rightfully so, this week. And I mean, I don't play DFS anymore, but it'd be an interesting. I'm interested to see what the ownership looks like there.
Okay, you said worst offense I've ever seen.
Yes. It is right now. It's the.
I think you made your point in the Trends episode.
And you know what? I didn't get bullied or I did get bullied, but I didn't give in to all the people on Discord earlier this summer. I don't forget. There were people because I had Cam Ward ranked below Aaron Rodgers, and everyone's like, "What are you doing? Why you got Cam Ward below Aaron Rodgers?"
Hold on, because it wasn't just me. It wasn't just some of those other people's. The guy that you've been on the show with twice this week also was a Cam Ward apologist. Denny was. Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was getting tagged. I was getting tagged by people. It was like when two forces combined, and yeah.
I should have, to be fair, I probably ended up even switching it. I probably did give in, but I was lower. I was lower on Cam than consensus. That's why I'm so mad about the Calvin Ridley process still. I'm so mad. That is the worst process of my season for sure. The way that I handled Calvin Ridley, I'm so mad about it. And I'll probably talk about it for months on the show after the season's over.
Okay. In the words of the famous Stringer Bell, Baltimore native.
Yeah.
I want you to put the word out there that we back up.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson practicing again.
I'm going to give a bunch of greater than signs. I am ready for this Baltimore. I bought into Zay Flowers. I have Zay Flowers now. So I'm excited about that after, not drafting a ton of him. Cause I thought he was a good buy last week. I'm excited for Baltimore to be a competent offense again. Very excited.
2 minutes ago, beat writer Jeff Zurbeck, I don't even know how you say his last name, said Harbaugh said Lamar Jackson was a full participant at practice today, and we'll see where it's at going forward. I don't know how he could be practicing for the past 3 days and not play this.
He's playing. I'd be shocked out of my mind. Not only that, but sportsbooks had it locked in as him playing basically all week.
Yeah. Agreed there. Okay. Supposedly we're getting about the same amount of Rashee Rice this week.
What does that mean? As in the same route share?
Same workload is what they're saying.
I mean, still use him?
Of course. I mean, obviously he was
10 targets on 19 on 19 routes. I talked to Denny about that, and Denny's like, I was like, I don't remember ever seeing something like that. And Denny's like, well, what about week 1 JSN? I was like, okay, that's true. We did see an absurd targets per out run rate for JSN in week 1. But yeah, I mean, he can still get it done off of 20 routes run, but I'm not gonna. It feels like they should only increase his workload, but they're in a position this week again where they could hypothetically blow out Washington with Jaden Daniels out. I mean, they're huge favorites, and so in that environment, you're probably not going to see as much volume overall for Rashee Rice and for that passing attack.
Okay, we got another quote 15 minutes ago. that it's a lot to come back right. It's a lot to come right back in and play right away and play 60 snaps. As much as we can keep him in, we'll do that. So that was the offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, there. So, okay. All right. We're good there. Because I need him. This is what we drafted him for, is to save our teams. And we got more Fannin. Njoku is questionable this week. So,
yeah.
Shout out to Harold Fannin Jr.'s mom.
I mean, but it sounds like Njoku's been practicing. I'm expecting Njoku to play this week right now.
Really?
Yeah. He's been practicing.
For some reason, I thought he was not going to play this week.
I mean, he might not. I don't think it's confirmed either way. But I'll at least say shout out Fannin's mom.
Okay.
That's my. But like if David Njoku plays, then Harold Fannin is not really like an easy play. He's more of like a high end tight end 2 rather than like a low end 1 or like a mid tight end 2. But yeah, I saw
the late round.
Wow.
I thought you were done. I thought you were done.
Let's move on. Let's talk about some data.
The late round main event.
We got today's data, and we need to zoom out for this because you've got a big old graph right now.
Yeah, I think this is kind of interesting. I mean, I talked about the Eagles on the mailbag episode this week when talking about Devontae Smith. And I created this graph, it's a line chart, if you will, of all these different teams. That's what all the grayed out lines show. And then the green one is Philadelphia. And what this is showing is that you have week on the x-axis. So every week you're seeing what their cumulative overall pass rate is, right? So after week 1, the Eagles had one of the lowest pass rates in football, right? It was fourth lowest. And this is on dropbacks. And then after week 2, it was even lower because they were even more run heavy in that week 2 game. But since week 2, we've seen it gradually rise. And now in cumulative pass rate, they're like bottom 10-ish. Like they're not even close to bottom in the league of the league in pass rate. Part of the problem has been for Philadelphia, they're not running as many plays. They're not as efficient. And they're not very fast in how they are moving each play when Kellen Moore's offenses, we know, are. But with that being said, it's good to see that they have been throwing the ball a lot more. There has been some regression. Honestly, it was weird how run heavy they were to start the year. But that's just a 2-game sample. Like generally speaking, when teams have really, really low pass rates one year, they do bounce back and have higher pass rates the following year because of regression. Because of injury, like part of that regression is like injury related, like a defense might not be playing as well, or like personnel is different, all that kind of stuff. And we're seeing that a little bit with Philly right now. So it's good news for their pass catchers, even like Saquon a little bit. It's not terrible news just because they can use him in the pass game and they can move the ball a little bit more effectively when you do run or when you do throw the football, because every drop back is going to be worth more in expected value than every run will. You can't, obviously there's a balance there and you can't just throw the ball every single play. But the offense should be more efficient with this kind of balance as opposed to being so run heavy. Like I said all week, I'm not necessarily buying or selling Saquon right now because I think there are some reasons as to why he's not playing as well. But when it comes to the pass catchers, I just want to make sure that no one has this like anchoring bias with them being like horrible fantasy assets. Since week 2, they've been great. Like there's been some valleys with those peaks, but you're going to get that at wide receiver just inherently, because these guys, I think we've established they're not, from a fantasy perspective, elite players that are going to see 12 plus PPR points every single game, no matter what. There are going to be some valleys, but the peaks are there, and that's still very, very important.
Yeah, especially as we get closer to like playoff season, we need this graph just to continue to go up. We need some shootouts. We need some double stacks to go off for the Eagles. If you're a Saquon Barkley owner, you just need him to get in find the end zone a few times.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's get on to the main event.
The late round main event.
All right. These are players that I like more than consensus this week. Jackson Dart, I don't have a ton of, every week I'm relatively chalky at quarterback. but I am 2 spots ahead of consensus this week with Jackson Dart. I do think the Eagles, like, I am a little bit more fearful. I said this on the Sleeper Show, a little bit more fearful of this matchup than some might be, just because I think the Eagles are going to play a lot better defensively than they did the last time they played the Giants. But Dart right now is QB4 in points per game. If you just count his starts, he's rushed for 50 plus in 3 of 4. He has a rushing touchdown in 3 of 4. Could get Darius Slayton back this week. I haven't seen an update on that. So all of that combined, I know that their team total is like sub 19 points, and that's very, very scary, but he should give you a floor. And it's not like it's like an amazing week at quarterback. So I have my QB 12 when consensus has him at QB 14.
All right. You've got cover boy DeAndre Swift as your running back this week.
Yeah, I like Swift because we know that game script can or won't really impact him. And this is a game against Baltimore where, you know, if it does go a certain way that we think it could go, with Baltimore being healthy offensively, then all of a sudden that game script goes south for Chicago. Kyle Monangai is not as involved, and DeAndre Swift would get just as involved, you know, because he's their pass catcher. You know, last week he had his lowest target share of the season, but if you look at the game script, that was one that was pretty positive for Chicago. They use a little bit more Kyle Monangai. And if you just look at route share, which is important, when there's going to be fluctuations in target share all the time, but make sure, not all the time. I mean, some players will obviously always just like see good target shares because they're good, but like, you know, an above average receiving back or something, you're going to see some fluctuation in target share. What you need to rely on then is their route share. And if their route share is also dropping, then you can say, oh, they didn't run as many routes, and therefore that's why their target share was also lower. But with DeAndre Swift last week, he ran the same number of routes. So it could just be matchup driven. It could be game script driven. They're just not targeting their running backs as much in that individual game. You don't need to find the answer for that all the time. You know, it's fine to just say, this was one game. This is how it went down. I'm just glad his overall usage really didn't change that much. And that was the case with DeAndre Swift. He still has scored 16, 26, and 21 PPR points over his last 3. There's a negative game script possible, but he should still be on the field if that's the environment. And Baltimore has been a top 5 matchup for running backs this year by adjusted points allowed. So I have DeAndre Swift at RB 12. Consensus has him at RB 15.
I'm not trying to give anything away, but I would love to see this game go absolute shootout mode.
Yeah, I think it's possible.
All right. T. Higgins owners, just take a deep breath. Kind of like me and the internet connection. Take a deep breath because you have him higher than consensus this week.
I do. Wide receiver 15. Consensus has him at wide receiver 18. I said it before. 25.5 point total. No Sauce Gardner. The Jets have been a below average matchup for wide receivers, but it's not something that you got to totally avoid. Higgins has seen a 20% and 22% target share with Joe Flacco. You know, I just think that this offense is one that we want to invest in this week, and this is a decent enough matchup for T. Higgins, so he should probably find your lineup.
And then tight end, boy, he is back.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that far.
No,
I would not go that far.
No, I don't know, because the consensus is tight end 17, but you have Evan Ingram, tight end 12. Evan Ingram, save some of our best ball bags, please.
Dallas's defense is just really bad, and Dallas's games usually have gone over. Have they gone over every single week this year? They might have, but they
like,
at least
last week wasn't the Dallas defense fault; it was the Washington.
Yeah, but like Dallas in general, you know, has these like really great scoring environments for their team. So I just want to get everyone involved that's gonna be involved in that game, and you get Evan Ingram this week, and there's some logic behind it. This isn't just like hey, let's use Pat Bryant because his you know snap share is trending up or something like that, like I talked about last week with Bryant. But this is a player who had his highest route participation rate last week at 66%. Dallas is bad everywhere, but they're still bad against. They're bad against you know running backs and wide receivers, but they're bad everywhere. They're bad against tight ends too. Ingram has seen a 17% target share or more in 4 straight games. This game has shootout potential. I'm going to want to invest in it until enough data tells me otherwise, that Dallas is able to like stop these opposing offenses.
Yeah. Do you feel good about like anyone in particular not named Courtland Sutton or Evan Ingram? I just have a hard time right now, like confidently starting some of these other Bronco pass catchers. Yeah.
I think you just got to lean on route share, and that's been Troy Franklin as like the next guy up from like a projection standpoint. I want them to use more Pat Bryant. I have him maybe as a look ahead waiver wire option. We'll get to that in a second, but you know, I think that the safest option would be Troy Franklin, which is why I called him out on the sleeper show. Marvin Mims obviously is a big player, but yeah, all of them have like insane volatility. Cortland Sutton even has volatility.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
He I feel like people think that he's like a high floor player, but the dude is all over the place with his target shares and the way that they distribute the ball in Denver. Like it's not as like concrete. Now, with that being said, Cortland Sutton's like an easy top 10 option this week, so you should be playing him.
Okay, bold predictions for week 8. You talked about it earlier. Jalen Noel is a top 20 wide receiver.
Look, if you guys listen to me during the draft process, you know that Jalen Noel was like, I would go on other shows talking about prospects and they were like, who's your, favorite sleeper wide receiver in this class? And I would say Jalen Noel, because at one point early in the process, he was a projected day 3 selection. He ended up going day 2 to Houston. But he's a really fun player that can do a lot after the catch. One of his top comp in the ZAP model was Randall Cobb. And a lot of that was just due to like the versatility of his profile. I think Cobb is more, like running back, could do stuff in the backfield kind of player. But Jalen Noel plays the slot. He can get downfield. He had some I remember watching his tape whenever I was prospecting. He made some like unbelievably insane catches at Iowa State. So he's really insane athlete. He has the package to be a really good slot receiver. Now, the problem with Houston is that they haven't been using their rookie wide receivers the way that we would want them to use their rookie wide receivers. Now, last week, Jalen Noel had like a 48% route participation rate. He had really good production, all things considered, on like a 15-ish% target share. And so I'm looking at this week, no Nico Collins. Christian Kirk is really the big one for him, because if Christian Kirk is out, that opens up the slot completely for Jalen Noel to step in. And if Jalen Noel steps in and plays a slot, he's based on what he did last week and based on what DeMeco Ryans was even saying through the media, I think there's a chance that we see an uptick in his route share in general. And this is a really good matchup for slot players. So San Francisco, they have their 32nd in wide receiver target share allowed, adjusted wide receiver target share allowed, meaning when teams face the 49ers, they're not using their wide receivers. They're not targeting their wide receivers at a very high rate versus their baseline and versus how often they target their wide receivers. But when you look at the wide receiver targets against San Francisco, they have the second highest slot target share allowed. So when teams are attacking San Francisco with their wide receivers, they're using their slot players. And that's resulted in the 7th most adjusted fantasy points to slot wide receivers allowed. So you bring that all together, there's more opportunity for Jalen Noel. He's a good player. There's a good matchup. I do think that there's a chance he would be a top 20 wide receiver this week.
Okay. Oh boy, this next one.
Derrick Henry, top 3, baby.
Hear ye. Look at us. Look at us.
We're here together. Look, we're like the muscle meme, like the bringing them together. You know what I'm talking about? Clasping. Yeah. Like you're arm wrestling, but you're really saying we're in this together.
Exactly. Derrick Henry, top 3 this week.
I think he could be back this week. I almost said that the Ravens would drop a 40 burger. That was going to be one of the. I was kind of toying with a couple. I threw this in the spreadsheet at the very last second. I was toying with Marcus Mariota being a top 10 quarterback this week, just because I think there's a lot of garbage time potential and a lot of scrambling potential. But I went with Derrick Henry, top 3. Chicago is a top 10 matchup for running backs by adjusted points allowed. Lamar Jackson's back. They're coming off a bye. I think that we see the Ravens get their mojo back this week offensively.
Okay. Look ahead waiver wire. Let's start with a guy who has been on this waiver wire a few times, and we've talked about Kyle Monangai.
Yeah, like I think that he's okay. Like he's not like a fantastic running back. I think that he's like solid and he can play the role that he's playing.
You've come a long way since the initial reaction.
Yeah,
they drafted him in the 7th round.
Okay, my initial reaction of Kyle Monangai being drafted the Bears was more so frustration that the Bears could have drafted so many other so many other running backs in this class.
It's like a generational running back class, and they wait to the 7th round.
Yeah, and they went with Kyle Monangai, which nothing against him. He's fine. He's like a replacement level type running back. Like in a situation like he's in right now, he can get you by and he can be okay in fantasy. But I would be shocked if Kyle Monangai is like a long-term bell cow play for the Chicago Bears, right? But in this moment, he can be usable. I'm starting him in a league this week. Do I feel great about it? Not really. But if he does maintain that like 40% running back rush share in a potential negative game script, I mean, we'll see. It could still be a neutral or positive script, but if that continues, that's really good news for Kyle Monangai. So I do think he should be rostered right now. And, I called him out already this week, but let's call him out again for the look ahead.
Like there's different categories of this look ahead waiver wire. I would consider this next one as people have picked him up a few times and maybe Tootin as well, but they're impatient with him, or they need to start because of bye weeks. Like I just picked him up in my home league. It's Brashard Smith.
Yeah, I had to take a swig of my giant jug of water as my mouth is getting really dry from talking so much. Brashard Smith. I said this I'll just throw it out here, outside of Discord. Okay. I think I'm just going to throw it out here to the world. Okay.
Oh boy.
This is a bold prediction for rest of season. This is like a truth serum take kind of deal. Okay. So do not take this like super, super seriously. The Chiefs, like final 5 games, they have some really interesting matchups, like against Dallas and against Tennessee, and then other matchups where it could be a higher scoring game. And I like the final month schedule for them. I think there's a chance that Brashard Smith is like a fringe top 20 running back during the final month of the season. Like he's one of the rookie backs who, is able to, and this is in a PPR format. Like they're using him.
He's like Jerick McKinnon.
Yes, the Jet McKinnon like comp is the one that we've always gone to.
Yeah.
But they're using it. He said back-to-back games with a 14% target share. I know last week he saw the work that he did on the ground largely because they had the game script they did. They used him a lot in the fourth quarter, but that's also good. Like people look at that kind of thing and they're like, oh, like this guy didn't get any work because like Kyron Williams, for instance. Kyron Williams this past week doesn't get that much work because the Rams were ahead by so much. And so they're giving Blake Corum more work. And people are like, oh, that's a huge deal. The Rams are a good team. And if the Rams are ahead in games and now we're sitting there being like, are they going to use more Blake Corum because they're afraid of giving Kyron Williams too much work? That matters for fantasy football. We can't just dismiss that because this one individual game went that way. Similarly, if the Chiefs are really good and they want to use Brashard Smith more, we have to still factor that into our evaluation in some way. So I like Brashard Smith as a talent a lot. Like the Zap model really liked him versus where he was drafted. He was, a late round dart throw in the draft guide. He's one of my dudes. Like I think that he's one of my like favorite value rookies in this class. And so I'm intrigued by how they've been using him and what can happen down the stretch.
I'll let you get another swig of water while I do that. Thomas said, muscle meme. You mean the Predator handshake, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. In other words, Predator. I did not know that. I did not know that at all.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know every pop culture reference. So yeah.
Yeah, especially old pop culture.
People are gonna be like crashing their car listening to this audio. God, he's such a moron.
But honestly, this is how we feel talking to some of these Zoomers out there that they have no clue. Like about Austin Powers, anything like that.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Get it.
Austin Powers was I went to my dad took me to the theater when I was in 3rd grade to see the first Austin Powers. 3rd grade. Imagine being in 3rd grade watching that movie. My daughter's in 2nd grade right now. I can't even fathom having her watch Austin Powers.
No chance. I called my parents on the phone and said, I'm going to go watch Jurassic Park. It's PG-13.
Oh, wow.
And so they were like, okay, well, you're 13 now, you can go watch it. And then I'm going with all these group of friends and they're like, oh, let's go to Austin Powers because it came out like the same week.
Yeah. It was PG-13 though. Yeah. It wasn't R. Yeah.
No, but still Jurassic Park and Austin Powers were 2 different things and it changed. Like I quoted Austin Powers for the next 10 years.
Yeah.
Probably.
The thing is though, is that like so many, when I was an adult and I watched that movie again, like so many of the jokes when you're in 3rd grade just go right over your head. You have no idea what they're saying in the movie.
Margaret Thatcher naked on a cold day. Margaret Thatcher naked on a cold day.
Right.
All right. I did not think we were going there. But speaking of the hot tub scene, Austin Powers, you got Bashal Tootin.
Oh yeah! Wow, what a segue!
I know. I'll just let you take the rest of this too.
Pardon me for being rude. It was not me. It was my
my food.
All right, Bashal Tootin. a lot of people are probably just like, I'm so over this. It's ETN's backfield. I think that there's potentially something that's gone on with that shoulder. I talked about this with Denny on Perspectives. There's been something going on with that shoulder where he's been on the injury report and like he ends up playing and stuff. And I just, they're coming out of the bye. What if they use Tootin a little bit more? And it's still a rushing offense that I think we should be attracted to and that we want to invest in. So this isn't really super anti-Travis Etienne. I thought he actually looked okay in week 7, despite the fantasy performance. But yeah, I mean, I still think Tootin, like we're in a phase in fantasy football where we want to stash these rookies, and the majority of them are not going to become anything. But I want to invest in players that I think are good and talented, and I think that Tootin is good and talented.
All right, this one actually is injury related, but it's Devin Neal.
Devin Neal. Yes. Sorry, I was reading a comment that said 3rd grade in 1997, JJ, it was Ronald Reagan's first term when I was that young. Yeah. Now everyone knows how old I am. So Devin Neal, I talked about him on 15 transactions. I think he's a really good prospect. His production profile was probably like top 5 in the class and it's a loaded class. Really robust profile, good pass catcher, good size, a little bit lacking in like long speed and his ability to, he's not like the most athletic dude in the world, but he can carry a workload. So, you got an older running back in front of him on the depth chart. And if he goes down, I think Devin Neal can shoulder a lot of work. But even like, I don't know if the Saints are going to want to use Alvin Kamara in like I said Kamara that time. I usually say Kamara.
It is Kamara, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if they want to use him. Also, I've been saying Marcus Mariota because it is Mariota and not Mariota.
I'm the one who told you this. It's Kamara, like the car, and Mariota.
Yeah, right.
The other way. Yeah.
Well, but Alvin Kamara says both things. He's openly talked about it being either or.
But we talked to his sister one night on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, the midnight show.
I did not know this.
Okay. She said Kamara. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I've been saying Kamara anyway. But yeah, like I don't know if they want to give him an 80% running back rush share. And so let's see what Devin Neal's made of. See what kind of workload he gets this weekend, and stash a week ahead because he might just slot into the Kendre Miller role, and Kendre Miller was someone that we were rostering.
Okay, you've got Tez Johnson and Isaiah Davis next is the next two.
Yeah, Tez Johnson I think is self-explanatory at this point, so I'm not going to get. You can go listen to the mailbag episode. I talk about him for like 8 minutes. Isaiah Davis, Breece Hall's banged up right now, and there could be a trade happening. Now, I said this too on the mailbag episode, but I don't think that we should assume Isaiah Davis is a bell cow if Breece Hall does get traded. I just think that he would obviously get a nice uptick in projected workload if Breece Hall does get traded.
You would also save a lot of fab if you got him now and Breece Hall was traded, regardless of how it turns out. You're just saving yourself money or priority there. Okay, you've got we talked about Jalen Noel, but then you've got the 2 Packers receivers, Jaden Reed and Christian Watson.
Christian Watson could be back this week, it sounds like. I think they're going to ease him in and not use him like, a crazy amount right away. So deeper leagues, you can stash him if you want. Jaden Reed could end up being back in the next handful of weeks, so keep him on your radar. I think he would slot in right into that slot role, whereas Christian Watson would be more rotated in and out on the perimeter. It would hurt Matthew Golden a little bit if they come back healthy, and Romeo Doubs too, like to a degree. So keep that in mind with these players. But they are getting healthier and they could be back. Christian Watson as soon as this week, and Jaden Reed over the next couple.
Okay, and then we've got some rookie and year 2 guys, Parker Washington, Pat Bryant, Luther Burden, Malik Washington, and Jack Besh.
Yeah. So Parker Washington, there's that Brian Thomas thing going on. He was banged up against LA. They have a bye week, so no one is really caring about Parker Washington right now. But if Brian Thomas were to miss time, they don't really play the same kind of position, but there would be more target potential funneled to Washington. He was seeing a lot of looks in that game against the Rams too. So he's someone in deeper formats you could stash. Pat Bryant, I talked about earlier. It's when you get this sort of like combination of like kind of rising usage, like we're seeing with Pat Bryant and snap share and route participation, and then you get that combined with a really good matchup where there could be fireworks from like just a game flow perspective and just like a high scoring game. Sometimes we see players just like emerge from that because they're in that really good environment. They could break a big play. They could do something big, and we want to be in front of that. So I'll throw Pat Bryant out there again. Luther Burden, it's kind of the same argument. That could be a high-scoring game. He actually has a decent matchup too, like individual matchup. Maybe this is the week that they stop using Olamide Zaccheaus the way they've been using him. So be on the lookout and be ahead with Luther Burden. And then Malik Washington, you have Jalen Waddle is going to play apparently, but he's a little bit banged up. Darren Waller's out now. They don't have many options, even though Washington's like the quintessential 6 for 25 kind of player at this point. He should be someone that you at least have your target on. And then Jack Besh, they're on a bye, but Jacoby Myers get dealt, and Jack Besh was seeing 80% route participation rate over his last 2 games.
Colson Loveland is your tight end, and I think I saw Cole Kmet is still questionable this week.
Yeah, I'm not really. I mean, even if he goes, I wouldn't expect him to play that much. So, it's a rookie tight end, a really good rookie tight end, and I'm intrigued by that. So I think he should be on your radar. That's really what this comes down to.
I did pick up the Colts last week, so they are playing the Titans this week. So thank you for that. In the stack league I'm in, just felt like free. I didn't have to bid anything on a defense. You got Jacksonville, and you've also got Sam Darnold for a look ahead.
Yeah, so Sam Darnold gets Washington next week. That's a pretty intriguing matchup for him. And then Jacksonville, there's really not many defensive plays that we should feel good about that are like sitting on the waiver wire right now. A lot of them are like 50% plus owned at this point. But Jacksonville does get Vegas, and we know Vegas has struggled offensively. They're both coming off a bye, so there's not really an advantage from a bye week standpoint.
Whew, that Vegas offense.
Yeah, really disappointing. That's one of the like low key. That's one of the more disappointing situations this year, because I thought Geno could be like a mid QB2, and he's just not even usable.
Well, he and Cam were like back to. They were right in the same tier.
Yeah.
For some,
I like Geno more than Cam.
Yeah, you did. How'd that
Idiot.
turn out for you?
Idiot.
Yeah, baby. Goodbye. And we're going to talk about the quad box. Like I've seen some responses as far as like the quad box. You're just picking island games.
Yeah, it's not really a quad box, guys. We're just calling it the quad box because we're talking about games that we're excited about this weekend.
Use your imagination a little bit. That's all I'll say is use your imagination. I will go ahead and say I'm not picking the Titans game because I don't want to watch that at all. But
Good.
you mentioned you were potentially looking at the 40 burger. I get it. It's the highest total. But Bears and Ravens, there are so many good fantasy pieces in that and pieces that I have investments in. So I'm going to put the Bears and Ravens as my first slot.
Okay. While you do that, I'm going to take the Cowboys Broncos.
Okay.
Because I think every game that the Cowboys play in ends up being a shootout.
Okay, so we've taken the top 2 team totals.
Yeah, do you like the Saints
totals.
Buccaneers? Like, it's not that intriguing to me.
No.
Right now, you can get kind of weird with it, but I have one in mind for me, so we'll see if you snipe me or not.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Giants Eagles part 2.
Okay.
Because obviously we know what happened that the first game, and I just think they're going to be out for revenge, and I'm looking for more of an offensive explosion against this Giants team by the Eagles.
I am going to go with the Aaron Rodgers revenge game.
Oh man, how did I miss that?
With the Packers and Steelers on Sunday night. It's an island game. That game's going to be fun. I mean, it's a fun game where the Steelers are coming off a really, really like one of the worst defensive performances in the Mike Tomlin era, I would argue. And Aaron Rodgers gets the, he's one of those players that like definitely has just thought about it all week.
Yeah. It means
like he once look what he did week 1 against the Jets and how he acted with that game. It was like he like conquered, an entire civilization by winning that game. So I can't even imagine what happens against the Packers.
I'm ready for the touchdown celebration and him be tackled by another offensive lineman of his.
Oh, yeah. Look, man, the vibes on offense for Pittsburgh really aren't that bad. The vibes on defense are where things are real, real bad.
which is crazy to think about. They want Aaron Rodgers to come back another year as as a guy who kind of cheers for Steelers sometimes. Do you want him back for another year?
It would hurt the narrative out there because the draft is in Pittsburgh next year that they were going to get their franchise. I mean, they still could, I guess, but they were going to get their franchise quarterback, in 2026. Like that was the year that they were, because it was in Pittsburgh and it would be this huge storyline. They still could. I think Rodgers is playing fine for what he needs to do. Really boring and like low ADOT and not throwing the ball down the field that much. But like the offense to me really has played above expectations. The defense has just been horrendous.
Okay. As a reminder, go subscribe, like, comment on our videos. We're trending towards 10K. So we are.
We'll do something. Let's do a giveaway for when 10K hits. We'll give some swag out to some people who are subscribed.
Absolutely. And we have rankings that you can find on Patreon, rest of season rankings, weekly rankings. If those are your thing, we have the mailbag and Q&A and the Discord. The Discord's awesome. A lot of awesome people in that Discord. And then today, not just this show, but we also had the mailbag and perspectives. It was a good, solid perspectives episode with Mr. Denny Carter.
Yeah, I had multiple shows with Denny this week on the YouTube channel because we do Living the Stream every Wednesday and then recorded with Denny the following day. And, you guys get to watch perspectives now.
The Living the Stream soccer coaching segment. I love that as a youth coach.
Yeah.
I was just like shaking my head when he was talking about we need more people on offense. I'm just thinking,
he's gonna hear from some parents here soon.
All it takes is a team with a few good offensive pieces, and that strategy. But you called him Mike McDaniels was so perfect.
It's exactly amazing. He's doing Mike McDaniel things. That's all it is. Yeah.
So you did great. This might be Mike McDaniel's last week. I know they say he's like sticking around, but
I mean he's definitely what they call it, silent quitting.
Yes.
that's what's going on in Miami right now.
Speaking of mailbag, he has mailed it in.
Yes.
You want to answer this question real quick? How do you decide which of these players to stash? When you talk about the look ahead waiver wire, is it like by positional needs? Is it by you're looking for a league winner?
Yeah, there's no like easy way to answer this because every roster is going to be different. But I can at least tell you like
that's the answer, probably, right?
Yeah, but my process for this is like, okay, I have X number of teams, so it's easier to diversify and say like, okay, I'll stash this guy here, this guy here. But if you have one team, okay, you should definitely lean into the talent profile, and who you like the best of these players just as like talents. But a lot of stashes, especially at running back, they're not going to become anything without an injury. And the injury side is just complete luck. It's just based on, if this guy gets hurt tomorrow, like who's their backup, and all of a sudden he gets elevated, and it could have been this other running back that got hurt. But you got to also look, there are going to be some running backs like Kyle Monangai. Let's just look at Kyle Monangai versus Bashal Tutin. Okay. I like Tutin more as a talent. Okay. Than I do Kyle Monangai. I like the situation probably similarly. It's not like too different because Ben Johnson has been in his bag a little bit with the run game recently. But I like Tutin more than Monangai as like a pure like talent. And so Monangai though is going to give you some production right away. He's going to give you something. Now, with an injury to DeAndre Swift, you could argue Monangai would get a nice boost, but I would argue if Travis Etienne gets hurt, the boost in value with Bashal Tutin would be greater than if DeAndre Swift got hurt for Kyle Monangai because Bashal Tutin's the better player. So if you need production right away, you might have to add Kyle Monangai. But if you want someone that you're just purely stashing, that if there's an injury, they could become like an RB2 in fantasy, I still would believe that would be Bashal Tutin. You could disagree with that. That's just my process with how I view those players individually. But that's how I'm looking at stashes and not stashes. It's like, is this guy going to be getting me production right away? And then the other thing you have to think about is how your league reacts to that stuff, right? Like there are a lot of people who could have waited on a Rondé Gadsden, even though his peripherals were there, until a performance like last week happened. just because they know that their league isn't going to be competitive getting him off the waiver wire. I heard plenty of people say they got Gadsden for like $4 this past week because no one was really that active in their league. So you can play it slower with that. But with some players, you have to be a little bit ahead of the game because it's a more competitive league that's going to be looking, on waivers for those players. So, there's a lot of nuance to it. Like maybe someday I'll make a flow chart or something to say like, is your team competitive right now? Do you need a highly volatile player or
how many bench spots does your league have?
Yeah, there's just stuff like that where like sometimes you need to just get the high variance, does nothing without an injury player. Sometimes you need to get the guy who's giving you something. And that's really what this comes down to.
What you just saw or listened to was JJ basically on his Q&A session on Tuesday nights as well, available to Patreon members. That's a little sneak peek. These are the type of answers that you get there. JJ, final thoughts?
No, I'm excited for this week though. Last night I feel like got it off to.
Of course you are, because you are starting Gadsden in 80% of leagues.
I have some tight end premium leagues with Gadsden too. Nice. Things are great. I'm feeling great. And I'm going to see Wicked tomorrow with my wife and daughter. Which like the actual play, the actual musical. Yeah, it's here in Charlotte. I'm excited.
My daughter is in a play this weekend. She was a call up. She's going to be in Charlie Brown, and she's going to be a blanket, the dancing blanket.
Wow, that's a big role.
Yeah, involves some cartwheels and everything else.
Big stuff going on.
That's where you can find me. Also, shout out to my top 10 ranked Vanderbilt Commodores. I'll be watching them tomorrow, and I'll be preparing on Sunday in the the Discord, hanging out with all the late rounders. So big weekend ahead for us, JJ. Look at us. We are done with this show. Just want to say thanks for everyone tuning in, leaving feedback, loving us, and we appreciate you all. Shout out to DraftKings for sponsoring the show. We'll see you next time here on the Late Round Fantasy Football Show. Peace.